And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'll just turn my mic down a little bit there. Apologies for the delay in the start to the broadcast. There, we're just having a couple of audio issues there. Introduce myself. No one else was able to hear, unfortunately, so we'll get going in just a moment. So yes, welcome to round 12, the finale of the 2021 Halfords Formula Alpha Championship. We are here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, and it's looking like it's going to be an exciting round. We have Matt Daly, who has just taken the victory in the TCR Championship, currently in the lead with 182 points, and close behind him we have Colin Keneath with 176. So this triple header this weekend will be providing us some great action, a lot of tension as well. Currently, out on pole, we have Colin Keneath with a 138.4, 138.3, whose nearest makes no difference, 138.4, but Matt Daly is very close behind him, just 2 tenths down, also in the 138. Yes, apologies for that. A bit of a frantic start to tonight's qualifying session. Technology always helping us out in the best way that it can, and Matt Daly improves there, takes pole position with a 137.8. Now found half a second on Colin Keneath, so Colin Keneath will be feeling under pressure there, hoping to seal his championship fight. Of course, triple header, there's a lot of opportunity for errors. There's a lot of opportunity to, if he runs well, he can quite comfortably win the championship if things go wrong for the opposition, but a lot of opportunity for mistakes there. We're on at the moment will be the lap that secures pole for Colin Keneath there. See him in sector 2 being 8 tenths down from where he needs to be for the moment. So he's got just over 10 minutes yet. So nothing's sealed yet in terms of his position for the round for the first round of the weekend. Of course, following that, we have the partial reverse grid for race 2, as we see, I believe that is Will Harper in the background there, having a little bit of a collision with the Wall of Champions. I'm sure we're going to see that more and more throughout the weekend. Matt Daly is, in fact, in the pits at the moment, so we'll return back on board with Colin Keneath. Of course, this track, I imagine they'll be able to do quite a, probably 2, maybe 3, no, probably not 3, quali laps on one set of tyres. There's a few high-speed sections, but so much of this track is just straight line, gunning it, and of course these cars, powered by the 1.4 multi-air engine, don't really carry all that much speed compared to the other race cars that tend to use this circuit. So I imagine everyone will be running a fairly low downforce setup. This, of course, being an open setup championship, drivers are free to find a balance in the car that works for them. We see Colin Keneath locking up just a little bit there as we head to the end of Sector 2. Looks like he's got some slow traffic out in front of him. That is Will Harper there. I imagine he will get out of the way. It's not a perfect lap for Colin Keneath there. That lockup probably not helping him too much there. Head down the Casino Straight now. Colin Keneath will in fact have a little bit of slipstream from Will Harper there, so that will benefit him slightly as we breeze past the Wall of Champions now. Judged it just perfectly there, Colin Keneath did. Probably about as close as you want to get safely, especially during the race. Any more than that and you... Oh, it's Guy Swarbrick, not Will Harper. Apologies to Will and Guy there. Colin Keneath does improve. He is now 4 tenths down on Matt Daly, but so far Matt Daly looking relatively comfortable with that very nice lap of 137.8 for Matt Daly there. If we look down in the midfield, we've actually got a good little battle brewing. We saw this in the TCR Championship, we've seen this in the previous rounds in the former Alpha Championship as well. The midfield has been arguably one of the most exciting parts of the championships so far this year. Drivers ended up being very close to each other and battling each other for huge parts of the races. Been made for great viewing, and I'm hoping, based on what we're seeing in qualifying at the moment, with Rob Whitney 2 seconds off the pace and Alan Matthews 2.4 seconds off the pace, and we have Will Harper in between them. Hopefully we should be on for some very nice battles indeed. Matt Daly then is back out on track, trying to make that pole position for himself look even safer. As we head through turn 11 then with Matt Daly, he will be coming onto his quick lap in just a moment. Well, in these cars, you've got time to read a book, really, down the casino straight. It's the hot hatches that these little 1.4 engines go into may be adequate in that road use, but they certainly, I imagine, will leave the drivers wanting a little bit more on the straight, especially in overtaking situations. Colin Knief improves to find a 137.8, and that leaves Matt Daly just basically 300th down. It was very close between the two championship contenders at the moment. Matt Daly's car there looking very happy to rotate. Under braking there. Exactly what you want in these quality conditions. Something he'll probably have to watch out for during the race, but it'll be helping him immensely carry speed through the corners. See a little bit of a twitch coming through there on the back end of Matt Daly's car as well. And we head towards turn 8 now. Good old school circuit this. It's not too much runoff, but there's just walls either side, so you really do have to have your wits about you. It's a hybrid of a street circuit and a dedicated track. So arguably it's one of the quickest street circuits out there. Daly just above a 10th off where he needs to be for the moment. He doesn't have too long in his qualifying session left, but it's by no means comfortable for Colin Knief out in front. Paul Millman improves to find a 141.8. I believe we've slowly but surely getting more drivers creeping in, because looking at the server list before, it looks like we had a little bit of confusion as to which one of our dedicated servers the drivers were required to join. But slowly I think the message has come through, luckily. See Matt Daly just ever so slightly off the pace, heading into T2 there again. But yeah, Colin Knief should not rest on his laurels whatsoever with that time. It's a very good time, but Matt Daly is close behind. Again, that car just turning in nicely under braking. Just darts exactly where Matt Daly is asking it to. Pretty much on the pace there, 100th of a second. I mean, it could make the difference, so there's only 300th of a second separating first and second for the moment. Using about as much curb as he dares there, because of course you use a little bit more. It's not like one of these modern tracks. If you use a little bit more than what you are given, you're in the grass, you're in the gravel, and you're losing a lap. Heading through T13 now, I'm brushing past the wall of champions. Oh, it's always tense to see a car blazing through past the wall of champions at full speed. And it's not the lap that Matt Daly wanted, unfortunately. 4 tenths down on Colin Knief for the moment. Smith has improved earlier on to find a 139. Rob Whitney as well has found a good half a second, actually, so good job to him. He is looking fairly comfortable in 4th for the moment. Colin Knief is currently on a quick lap as well, heading through T10. In fact, that may not be a quick lap. It's about 2 seconds off the pace at the moment. We could be coming onto a pit lap now. We've got 6 drivers out on track at the moment. Fortunately, only 9 in the qualifying session so far, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple more joining. This being the finale of this season. It's gone quite quick, hasn't it? Lots of exciting racing action. Yeah, we see That must have been a quick lap, and Colin Knief abandons and returns to the pits. I imagine to drum up a final charge to secure pole position, which he is currently holding. Join Matt Daly as he heads through T11, and unfortunately not the Sector 2 that he would have wanted for the moment, with the margins being so close. Let's see what he can do down the casino straight. Taking a little bit too much curb there and made the car very messy heading. He was very lucky to not plant it in the wall of champions, and he stops there to allow the car behind to continue. Unfortunately, it is not going Matt Daly's way this qualifying session. He's clearly got some pace in him, but he's going to have to work hard to snatch and secure pole from Colin Knief. Colin Knief currently behind Rob Whitney. Is he going to try and stay behind there and use a little bit of slipstream? Bit of a cheeky move there to enable himself to secure pole position. I'd like to see that. Wouldn't be surprised if it starts looking like 2019 Monza here on these huge straights and these not particularly fast cars, it must be said. Well, obviously carry a lot of aero, a lot of downforce, and still incredibly quick cars. But in terms of the world of race cars, a 1.4 litre turbo is not on the cutting edge these days. But yeah, we're about to start seeing drivers using slipstream in a last-ditch attempt to get higher up the grid. In fact, if we look further down the grid as well, we've still got some very close times. Will Harper and Alan Matthews, again, only a couple of 110ths apart from each other. Riding curves a little bit there. It doesn't make the same mistake that Matt Daly did, and he didn't lose the back end as he starts his quick lap now. It looks like he will have Rob Whitney out in front. He will be creating some dirty air, but I imagine it'll be providing huge benefit down the straight. Heading towards turn 8, it looks like Colin Knief is abandoning this lap and not got the sector 1 that he would have wanted, and dips behind the car of Guy Swarbrick. Pardon me, that wasn't Guy Swarbrick, that was Will Harper. Surprisingly similar liveries on those two cars there. Something I've been battling with the entire year, as you've probably noticed. Yeah, Colin Knief abandoning this lap and re-energising himself for a final charge. This will be his last lap, as it will be for Matt Daly as well. Not too far behind Colin Knief, actually. It's going to be an exciting finale to the qualifying for the finale of this championship. Going to stay with Colin Knief then as he heads through the wall of champions and on to his final lap of the qualifying session. Here we go. Into T1 then, taking a little bit of curb and just missing the apex a tiny bit through T2 there, but he won't have lost too much time there at all. He's not being overly aggressive with the curbs, Colin Knief. He's playing it nice and smooth, but it's worked for him so far. The car's rotating nicely into T4 there. Heading towards T6, quite a tricky braking zone this, but it looks like he's nailed it so far. A little bit of curb from Colin Knief there, but as we head onto the straight now, he has a chance for a little bit of a breather. 2 tenths down that was, unfortunately, so far this doesn't look like the lap that will absolutely secure, but we're going to jump into Matt Daly's car, and he's found 600ths of a second there. So currently Matt Daly is looking good for pole position if this form carries on. Conconneath heads towards the hairpin at T10, while Matt Daly is just exiting T9 there. Rob Whitney disconnecting from the session in preparation for the race. Conconneath just over a second slower. He's going to have to abandon this lap, unfortunately. And unless Matt Daly has had a terrible Sector 2, he hasn't. He's found 2/10, has Matt Daly. Current championship, well, I should say, he's in the lead of the championship at the moment, and he's looking to defend that to the very end of this weekend, and it's going well for him so far. It's had a little bit of a tough qualifying session, but as we head down a casino straight and into T13, Matt Daly is currently looking like he will take pole position at the very end of the session. Past the wall of champions then. It's all down to this final straight. Matt Daly takes pole position by nearly 2/10. A very good final lap from Matt Daly there. Conconneath was looking surprisingly safe there, given that it was only about 3/10. But Matt Daly, when it mattered most, absolutely nailed that final lap. And he will find himself on pole position for part one of this triple header at Montreal. Our championship leader hoping to take both championships that we have ran in the first half of this year. It's going well for him so far, but Conconneath is by no means far behind, and we'll be battling him intensely towards the very end of this weekend for the former Alfa Championship. Join you in just a moment. So, with just over 30 seconds until lights out, we join the action here back at Montreal. Lights are about to go out on the first part of the 3 races for this weekend. The drivers are going to have to be very careful heading up through T1 and through the centre curve there. Bunch the drivers up nicely, and any one mistake could prove huge in this fight for the championship between Matt Daly and Colin Knief. So it's going to be one to watch out for as the gantry gets ready to be lit and the drivers are raising the revs ready to go. Gantry is lit. And we are away. Matt Daly getting a nice launch there, as does Rob Whitney. In fact, pardon me, there it looks like Alex Smith has got a very good launch himself, and will, I thought for a second, try and challenge Colin Knief there. But Matt Daly getting a nice launch indeed, and boxing Colin Knief off just a little bit there. Will Harper overtaking Rob Whitney. We don't have the timing tower up yet, which is proving very useful for me at the moment. I'm trying to just go off what I can see right in front of me, same as you can. There we go. Right, we have saying only 6 cars on track at the moment. I think there's definitely more than that. There we go. That's looking more okay. We've got some weirdness going on with the timing screens. Unfortunately, that's not what we want. Anyway, Matt Daly having a very good start to lap indeed, drawing out nearly a second in front of Colin Knief. Colin Knief himself about a second ahead of the car behind. Will Harper pressuring Alex Smith a little bit now, heading through T3 and T4. I mean, no, that will be T8 and T9. My mistake there. But Will Harper getting the overtake done regardless as we head to T10 now. Alex Smith is going to try and dive down the inside. Quite a brave move there, and it sees contact. Both drivers looking like they're going to be able to carry on. I'm not sure about any aero damage that might have came from that. But Colin Knief is slowly losing the grip of... well, Matt Daly is slowly... Sorry there, I'm a little bit distracted by this timing system. It's not quite done this before. We've got some weird behaviour in the finale. Just what we needed. But Alex Smith under pressure from Will Harper, who is currently in 3rd position. And as we head through T13 and past the Wall of Champions, he will eke out just in front to start the next lap. Just have to try and quick this very quickly on the fly. There we go. That's exactly what we needed. Thank you very much, game. Right, okay, so Matt Daly is now just over a second ahead of Colin Knief heading into T4 then. These two drivers running very quick indeed, with Will Harper, the next car behind on the tarmac, is a good 3 seconds behind them now. And he has found about half a second on Alex Smith at the moment, but I'm sure Alex Smith is going to pressure him as we head down the long straight in this slipstream. Rob Whitney not having the best start of the race there. He has dropped back a little bit from Alex Smith, but 8 seconds behind, and he will be enjoying the company of Alan Matthews as he gains in the slipstream heading towards T8. Matt Daly eking out even ever so slightly larger lead there. About 1.5 seconds now. But these two running along very nicely indeed. It's now about 4 seconds to the car behind, which is Will Harper. Alex Smith, complete opposite line to what he took last time around. Last time around he was very brave on the brakes, diving down the inside. This time he opted to go around the outside. Maybe he's looking after the tyres a little bit, trying to build up a charge towards Will Harper, of course. Something that you want to look after will be the tyres. I don't think the degradation is going to be massively high. There's some pretty harsh braking zones, but other than that, it's the medium and high speed corners that would usually start to affect them there. But 141 miles an hour as we head towards the Wall of Champions. Not the highest speeds that have been seen at this track by any means. Matt Daly setting the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:38.9. These two just in a different league, it must be said. The others in the 140s on a high fuel load. These two pretty much on quali laps. As Paul Millman and Guy Swarbrick looks like they've had a little bit of a collision and do swap positions indeed. As can be expected at Wall of Champions, someone's bound to at least have a small scrape within it. It looks like they had a little bit more than they would have wanted. But yeah, Matt Daly, Colin Knief just started lap 3 and there's now a good 6 seconds to the car behind, which is Will Harper still. He's done a good job so far keeping Alex Smith behind. That gap has now built up to about a second. But that is by no means securing the bottom spot of the podium for Will Harper there. We have 20 minutes to go in this race. Anything could happen. Rob Whitney still has Alan Matthews to accompany as they head towards T10. Alan Matthews being pulled along nicely by the slipstream, I think there. Rob Whitney able to defend quite well, but it's not enough to escape. It's a nice long lap this, so drivers do have time to contemplate what they're going to do, what moves they're going to make as they start the next circuit, start the next loop of this track. Company setting a 139.4. Those two on an absolute flyer so far, but Matt Daly has so far eked out just a little bit of an advantage. It's exactly how he needs to start his push to securing that championship. As Guy Swarbrick and Paul Millman swap positions again. Guy Swarbrick riding the curbs a little bit through T13 there. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of contact involved, but it looks like Paul Millman's got damage on the front of his car there. Colin Knief then slowly starting to lose grasp on Matt Daly, it must be said. About 2.5 seconds now separating the two. Of course, that's not to say that Matt Daly isn't going to make a mistake. We've seen drivers get it wrong at the Wall of Champions. We've seen drivers mess up the braking zone at T10. It can be very easily done. 2.5 seconds is by no means a safe margin with 80 minutes to go in the race. Alan Matthews and Rob Whitney swap position as they head through T8. But Rob Whitney is very close behind indeed, and I imagine he's going to try something quite brave under braking there. Alan Matthews diving to defend and box him off, really, it must be said. But it all comes down to the launch out of T10 and into T11, and it looks like Alan Matthews has got a slightly better, carried a bit more momentum there, and it looks like it's propelled him down the straight quite well. However, he's vulnerable to Rob Whitney behind him with that massive amount of slipstream that we've seen so far. And they're going to be pretty much wheel to wheel, side by side as we head into T13 through the Wall of Champions. This could be quite messy if they're not careful, but it looks like Rob Whitney has dipped back a little bit now, and Alan Matthews will start the next lap ahead of his rival Rob Whitney. Will Harper finding some nice pace out in front there, setting a 140 now. He's now got a couple of seconds on Alex Smith. Alex Smith, who we've seen drive some excellent races so far in this season. I think the notable one for me really was probably Bahrain. Bahrain, he did an excellent job, did Alex Smith. 3 seconds now separating Matt Daly and Colin Knief. So unless Colin Knief is trying to preserve his tyres for later, or he's got some other dastardly plan to thwart Matt Daly's championship challenge, it's looking like so far Matt Daly has got the upper hand in the finale of the championship. We see Paul Milner and Guy Swarbrick make a little bit of contact there. I'm not sure what's going on between the two, but they seem to be getting very familiar with each other as we head through T7 and down the straight now. Guy Swarbrick will have the slipstream. In fact, looks like he's got quite a good bit of slipstream now. We saw him gain a fair bit, and he's going to try the inside heading through T8 there. It didn't quite work. Paul Milner was carrying a bit more speed on the outside as he heads through T9 now, and up towards the hairpin, he has got the advantage. So unless Guy Swarbrick's brave under braking, it's looking pretty solid for Paul Millman out in front for the moment. But these two will be battling for the rest of the race, I can imagine, as Guy Swarbrick looks like he's locked up or just, I don't know, lost control under braking there and dives towards the wall. Very lucky not to have the car just lose a front axle or something, spinning around in a huge crash. He's able to carry on. It didn't end up losing too much time, actually. But that was a bit of a near miss for Guy Swarbrick there. Matt Daly now 3.5 seconds ahead of his championship rival Colin Knief, who is running nicely in second, but it must be said running in his own race almost now, as is Matt Daly. Will Harper about 10 seconds behind him. That 2-second gap between Will Harper and Alex Smith has kind of equalised now, so they've kind of settled into a pace that works for both of them, which is good, because we may see a little challenge brew between the two as we head further into the race. Alan Matthews has left Rob Whitney behind just a little bit now, but as we've seen from these two throughout this season so far, I'm sure they will be challenging each other further on in the race as well. Steve Knight has had a relatively quiet race so far. He's not had too much bother from the midfield, not had too much bother from the antics of the two drivers behind. He's just been running solidly his own race in 7th position there. So, given current running, with the current positions, it would see Matt Daly ending part 1 of this triple header. It would see Matt Daly, if he wins this race, with 207 points to Colin Keneath's 194 on current standings. So that gap increasing ever so slightly, and it will surely be secured if this pace carries on. Andrew Ayyad, who unfortunately isn't with us at the moment for the finale, is currently in 3rd position, with Alex Smith very close behind. So with Andrew Ayyad not currently participating in this weekend's running, it looks like 3rd position is... pardon me, I've just skipped Alan Matthews entirely there. Alan Matthews is currently in 3rd position with 130 points. He is currently in 5th position, and that is looking quite under pressure from Alex Smith at the moment. So still a good fight, not only for 1st in the championship, but also 3rd in the championship. Gap out in front now, extending to around 5 seconds for Matt Daly. Matt Daly running very well so far in this race. See, it must be running not that much downforce on his car at all. 144 miles an hour through the speed trap is one of the highest we've seen all weekend. And he's set, actually, I believe that's the quickest lap of the race. Yeah, it's a 38.4. Very nice lap from Matt Daly indeed. About halfway into the race and he's setting that type of lap. I imagine maybe then that tyre degradation is not too high at all, but as the fuel loads get lighter, we could start seeing some serious laps from the two drivers out in front at the moment. Alex Smith running nicely behind Will Harper. Will Harper, as in fact, if you look at Alex Smith's car, he's carrying a little bit of damage. That won't be helping him at all, and the Matthews will be wanting to gain on him quite quickly, I can imagine, to try and secure 3rd position in the championship, but that damage surely not helping Alex Smith's charge at all. Yeah, Will Harper has actually found a very good turn of pace further on in this championship. I think it'd be fair to say he struggled just a little bit maybe towards the starter rounds. These cars are very tricky cars indeed. All single-seaters are, and we don't go to easy tracks. But Will Harper, yeah, as the series has progressed, it's been good to see his pace pick up, and now he's turning into a very competitive racing driver indeed. He has kept the very quick Alex Smith behind for so long in this race already, and he's running quite nicely. He's on for a nice safe podium if things go his way in this race so far. Yeah, and it just looks like Colin Keneath is unfortunately not able to bring the challenge to fight for the championship so far this weekend. About 6 seconds separating Matt Daly and Colin Keneath now, as he gets very close indeed to the World of Champions onto the next lap. Matt Daly yet again setting a quickest lap of the race, a 38.4 dead. Very good lap from Matt Daly there. And yeah, Colin Keneath is not lapping at the same pace, 39.2 for Colin Keneath. Harper setting a nice lap there of a 40.5 pretty much, as he heads through T2 now. Drivers are slowly starting to find their own rhythm in this race and spread out in the field. We have Matt Daly currently in the lead, heading through T11 now. A nice 6.5 second gap for him out in front. As long as he keeps the nose clean, I am sure he will be on for a very nice finish indeed. 6 seconds behind him, we have Colin Knief battling at the moment to bring that championship fight to the very end of this weekend. In second position for the moment, Will Harper running nicely in third position, about 20 seconds off the lead. Everyone's staying on the lead lap, this being quite a long circuit, of course. But he has done a good job so far of keeping Alex Smith behind. Alex Smith carrying damage himself, and I'm sure he will be under pressure from 5th position Alan Matthews as we head into the closing stages of this race in that battle for 3rd in the championship due to the absence of Andrew Wyatt at this round, unfortunately. Very nice pace from Alan Matthews there, 144 miles an hour pretty much down the Casino Straight as he heads through the Wall of Champions now. Again, another good lap from Will Harper, a 40.2 now, getting quicker and quicker as the fuel load gets lighter. Rob Winnie in 6th position, running at the moment. We will see in just a sec as he crosses the lines. He's just gone through the Wall of Champions and he has just ran a 32.4. So nice consistent lap times from some of these drivers here. Alex Smith has just, in fact, overtaken Will Harper. Oh dear, I'm not quite sure what happened there, unfortunately. I was running through the grid and it looks like there's been fairly hefty collisions there. Steve Knight obviously getting involved in a bit of a tangle, but also Will Harper, Alex Smith and Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews benefiting from that nicely. It looks like Alex Smith and Will Harper had a bit of a collision heading through the complex from T3 onwards, it looks like. And that has unfortunately seen Will Harper now demoted down to 5th, with Alex Smith close behind Alan Matthews. This battle for 3rd in the championship have just got even more intense, so we're going to stay with this for a little while, I think. Heading through T8 then, Alex Smith. He's carrying damage on the front end, but he, I am sure, is even more determined to get that 3rd position in this race at the moment. He seems to be carrying some pretty good pace down that straight. He's going to stay right on the gearbox of Alan Matthews as they head into T11. He's picking that outside line again. I'm not sure if that's the quickest, but maybe that's what he's having to do with that front wing damage as he heads through T11 then. Once again, staying in the slipstream to try and eke out as much pace as possible. Will Harper has done a good job of catching back up to this field, given it looked like a fairly substantial whack. I don't think there's too much damage on Will Harper's car, but Alex Smith running very nicely in the slipstream there, 145 miles an hour as he heads through T13 and through the Wall of Champions now. Oh dear, bit too much. Taking too many liberties with that curve there, and unfortunately it looks like he's got suspension damage. Yeah, that's pretty severe suspension damage, unfortunately, for Alex Smith. That's not what he wanted at all for that fight for 3rd in the championship. He's clattered the Wall of Champions at full speed. Unfortunately, he's going to have to retire or limp that car back to the pits. That's not how he wanted this weekend to go at all. It's all kind of untangled. It was looking fairly good for him. He was catching, but unfortunately that damage has seen him have to return to the pits. And that will have ruined his race and potentially ruined his fight for 3rd in the championship. Alan Matthews then looking fairly happy in 3rd at the moment. Colin Knief is in fact gaining ever so slightly. He's found about 7/10 on Matt Daly, so we're going to watch that in a few laps' time to see how he is running. But Alan Matthews capitalising very well indeed on the mistakes of the others there, as Paul Milburn promotes himself into 6th position with Alex Smith's pit. I imagine that is going to be a fairly long pit stop. With 7 minutes to go in the race, I'll be surprised if he is able to make a decent number of laps. It will see him at the very bottom of the order. What a shame for Alex Smith there. But that now provides Will Harper with the slipstream round. He can still yet get back on the podium despite that earlier collision. It all went wrong at the Wall of Champions for Alex Smith. Let's see how it goes for these two drivers now. We saw about 145 miles an hour from Alex Smith's car before he planted it in the Wall of Champions in the slipstream. Let's see what Will Harper can do just behind. Doesn't like we are going to see, unfortunately, as Will Harper clatters the curb a bit. That's probably a bit too close for comfort for Will Harper there, but he keeps the nose clean. And as we start the next lap, we'll be putting pressure on Alan Matthews a little bit more. Yeah, there's definitely some front wing damage on that car from that collision earlier. You see the paint being stripped off a little bit. Still just over a second separating these drivers this far into the race. That is very good to see indeed. We head through T3 then. A little bit of time has been lost between the two. Actually, no, pardon me. A little bit of time has been gained by Will Harper quietly in the background, we see that Colin Knief is just running he's running quite nicely. I don't know if there was a little bit of a mistake from Matt Daly maybe, but he is staying consistent. He's still there. He's still an ever-present threat for Matt Daly as we head into the final 5 minutes of this race now. Less than half a second now separating Will Harper and Alan Matthews as we head into T10. He's going to be in the slipstream yet again, so that gap is going to shorten even more. Going to be a little bit of a concertina effect as we head into the hairpin. Will Harper following that outside line that Will Harper was as well. Not Will Harper. Alex Smith was following it as well. Alan Matthews opting to cut in on the inside. Probably looking after the tyres a little bit more is Will Harper. But as we head into the final 5 minutes, I imagine he is wanting to go full aggressive mode. As we head down a straight now then, and he is echoing every move that Alan Matthews makes on the casino straight. 146 miles an hour for Will Harper in the slipstream there. The fuel loads are getting lighter and the pace is ramping up ever so slightly. He's being a little bit more cautious through the Wall of Champions section there than Alan Matthews was, and he's gained nicely. The sector 3 of this lap has played into Will Harper's hands nicely. A 140.2, his best lap of the race so far. As we head through T1 then and through T2, they're in quick succession. Very easy to lose quite a lot of time. He's run a little bit too wide there, but both drivers are doing it nicely. A little bit of flame spitting out the back of Alan Matthews' car on the downshifts there, as Will Harper's car rotating nicely through T3. Will Harper's car running very nicely indeed. He's putting some serious pressure on Alan Matthews. There's only a few minutes left. If Alan Matthews can drag it onto the podium after the past few minutes of this race, it'd be a very good job indeed, but it'd also be a very good job to Will Harper if, after the failures of the previous laps, he can manage to drag it back up into the 3rd position. Less than half a second separating them again as we head towards T10, the hairpin. Harper opting for that outside line yet again. And he runs arguably maybe a tiny little bit wide on the exit of T10, but not too detrimental to his pace at all. He's about 7/10 down from Alan Matthews again as he weaves down the casino straight to try and break the slipstream, but Will Harper is copying his every move. He wasn't that time, actually. It almost looked like he was going to attempt it. 147 miles an hour now in the speed trap for Will Harper. Very good pace indeed. Bouncing both curbs heading towards the Wall of Champions. He doesn't want to do that too much, or he'll find himself looking a bit like Alex Smith, who's currently 2 laps down. Alan Matthews weaving to try and break the slipstream yet again. Alan Matthews' quickest lap of the race so far, but if he weaves too much like that, he's going to just be donating lap time towards Will Harper in his efforts to defend. It's a very fine balance that you've got to find. Speaking of fine balance, Colin Knief, he's only got about 2.5 minutes of this race left, but he is finding pace. He's found about half a second in the laps that we've been watching Alan Matthews and Will Harper. There's only about 2/10 separating these two drivers now as he tries to defend hard. Will Harper looking around the outside and is quickly having to dive in. And unfortunately, there's been contact on the braking. Will Harper was maybe a little bit too late on the brakes. It looks like he almost spun around. Maybe that was a bit of a glitch. But that has seen him drop back about a second now, about 2 seconds in fact. What a shame for Will Harper there. His challenge has been pretty much stopped dead in its tracks after that tiny little bit of contact has upset the balance of his car hugely. And that sees Alan Matthews looking a little bit more confident now. However, I imagine this will continue to the very last second of this race. Obviously, Colin Knief, yes, running quite nicely, heading through the Wall of Champions, carrying a little bit of dirt, kicking up a little bit of dirt as he starts the next lap now. Very nice lap from the pitted car of Alex Smith there, a 139.6. What a shame that he had to pit owing to that damage. He has shown some very good pace indeed. About 4.5 seconds separating Colin Knief and Matt Daly. Now, Matt Daly has led every single lap of this race. It has been a very good turn of pace from him so far in the first round of 3 for the finale of the championship. So it's Matt Daly's for the taking at the moment. Colin Knief is slowly chipping away at his lap time, but unless something goes tremendously wrong for Matt Daly towards the very last part of this race, it looks like it's Matt Daly's victory for the taking. Will Harper's been able to close that gap just a tiny bit. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be enough as we head towards the final laps, or we are in the final laps of this race now. That's a very good camera angle indeed. We can see them revving every single part of that multi-air engine out in order to try and gain some time in the slipstream. These multi-air engines don't typically like to rev all that much, I find. I have one myself in my Alfa Romeo in the real world, and probably at about in the road car, about 5,500 RPM. It's pretty much done, the 170 multi-air. You can rev it to about 6, but there's not really much point. So to see these cars go about 6,500 is very good indeed. And Will Harper, speaking of very good indeed, has gained nicely in the second sector of this lap. A little bit of lag there kicking in, dropping them back ever so slightly. Is just over half a second separating this two. Now Conkeith on a very quick lap there, 138.7 for him. But Will Harper is now putting pressure on the penultimate lap towards Alan Matthews as we head through T13 in just a moment in the Wall of Champions. We'll be hoping that there aren't any big mistakes and that we can just get some good racing in the very last part of the first section of this weekend. Will Harper clattering the curbs a little bit there, playing it very safe with the Wall of Champions, and he is nicely in the slipstream now of Alan Matthews as we head on to the final lap of the race. Pardon me, we are not on the final lap of the race. I thought these were closer than they were. T1, it looks like Will Harper made a little bit of an attempt at a move, but he had to back out of it there. Probably a little bit too brave on Will Harper's part from that far back. About half a second still separating them now. Again, if we just watch the time for Colin Conkeith there, they are dropping back nicely. But Will Harper is all over the gearbox of Alan Matthews, it must be said. We head towards T6 now, a very tricky braking point. It looks like Alan Matthews outbraked himself a tiny bit there. That may have just been lag. Will Harper was able to gain just a little bit. Will Harper hasn't gone towards that curb that much, whereas Alan Matthews has. Maybe it's just a quicker exit for Will Harper's setup. We head towards T8 now. And Will Harper will once again, as he has been for so much of this race, be in the slipstream of Alan Matthews now. About 3 tenths separating them as we head towards the hairpin at T10. I imagine he's going to try a pretty brave move there. It looks like there's a bit of a switch back between the two drivers there, and fortunately he backed out of it. And onto the Casino Straight we go then. The slipstream going to be playing into Will Harper's hands yet again. He sticks the nose out ever so slightly. He got to dip back again. Unfortunately, we head into T13 for him. No, he doesn't indeed. I'm not sure what happened there. Did Alan Matthews just outbrake himself just a little bit? But unfortunately for Alan Matthews, Will Harper is now in third position on this race. However, he is closely behind in the slipstream is Alan Matthews. We head to T1 then. P3 is by no means secure for Will Harper. Very quick lap there for Will Harper compared to Alan Matthews behind on that previous lap. We are now on the final lap of the race. We will join Matt Daly, who is heading towards T10 now, the hairpin, the final hairpin, the final lap of this race. A very good race indeed from Matt Daly. He's led every single lap of this race. Conkeith has tried to bring a challenge to him towards the end, but unfortunately it has not been enough. He's gained nicely, but it won't be enough unless there's a huge mistake heading through the Wall of Champions now. Final corner of the final lap of this race then. Very nicely done by Matt Daly, playing it safe. He didn't need to do anything extreme. He weaves across the line to celebrate the first victory for this part of the weekend for Matt Daly. Very good job indeed in that race for Matt Daly. Conkeith not too far behind at all. A very nice push towards the end there. Unfortunately, just not enough laps in it for him. Conkeith will be really wanting to push hard now towards the final part of this weekend. Will Harper still under pressure after all this time from Alan Matthews. They've been racing very nicely, these two. And it's going to come down to the final corner for these two now. Doesn't look like Alan Matthews has quite got the advantage in the slipstream that Will Harper was enjoying, as he looks like he's getting very close indeed to the Wall of Champions there. But Alan Matthews has lost a little bit of time, and Will Harper will take the bottom spot at the podium. Well done to Will Harper indeed. Well fought as Alan Matthews takes home 4th position. Some celebratory donuts from Will Harper there. I could just see the car slowing down and knew that they were coming imminently. Very well deserved from Will Harper, in fairness, and Alan Matthews joins him there. Some great to see camaraderie between the drivers there as Rob Whitney crosses the line to take home 5th position. With a little bit of front wing damage actually on Rob Whitney's car there.
for good measure. Rear tyres nicely cooked there on Will Harper's car. And the final driver on the lead lap then is Paul Millman, who capitalised on a couple of people's mistakes earlier on in the race and sees himself up in 6th position. So well done to him, taking home 6th. Steve Knight taking home 7th. Guy Swarbrick taking home 8th. And Alex Smith taking home 9th position. So let's hope that the action that we saw in this race carries on into the final two for this weekend. A little bit of a nice in-lap between the two very quick drivers of Matt Daly and Colin Knief there. We will join you in just a moment for part 2 of the racing action at this weekend.
You are back with the action here in Montreal for the second race of the weekend. The partial reverse grid, we have Rob Whitney on pole, Alan Matthews in second position, Will Harper in third, Colin Kerneef in fourth position, Matt Daly in fifth, Paul Millman sixth, Steve Knight seventh, Guy Swarbrick eighth, and Alex Smith ninth. We have got just over 30 seconds until lights out. If the race one was anything to go by, we are in for some very good action indeed in this partial reverse grid. Looking forward to it. Again, the drivers are going to have to be careful through the first couple of sections. They did a very good job, in fairness, at the start of the last race, so let's hope to see a repeat of that as we get ready for the lights to drop now. The revs starting to raise as the drivers prepare their launch. Gantry is starting to light then. Gantry is lit. And we are away. Alan Matthews getting a nice launch there, but so does Rob Whitney. In fact, Rob Whitney's car gripped quite hard in the end there. It looks like he had quite a bit of spin, but never mind. In fact, it looks like Alan Matthews was able to take the lead of the race so far with a very nice line through T1 and T2. That unfortunately left Rob Whitney sleeping just a little bit. Will Harper is now pressuring Rob Whitney as we head into T3. And in fact, Rob Whitney looked like he was about to lose position to Matt Daly there. Matt Daly holding up Colin Kerneef, his championship rival. That's something that we'll have to watch out for. Let's see how Colin Kerneef and Matt Daly run through the order, as Matt Daly is currently ever so slightly ahead of Colin Kerneef. They have both now passed Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney not starting lap one of this race how he would have wanted. Alan Matthews has overtaken Will Harper. Will Harper has managed to overtake the couple of drivers in front of him and is now about half a second behind Alan Matthews. Guy Swarbrick and Paul Millman battling out towards the back as they did at the start of the previous race. But it's very close. A very closely thought podium indeed. Colin Kerneef is a little bit behind. Matt Daly is right on the pace with Will Harper and Alan Matthews now, as Will Harper runs a little bit wide through T10 there. That leaves him very vulnerable indeed to Matt Daly. Matt Daly now hard in the slipstream of Will Harper. He's right on the gearbox and will be putting an immense amount of pressure under braking into T13 as he dives towards the inside of the circuit, trying to stay in the slipstream, but he's going to eke out just in front ever so slightly if he's brave under braking there. And yes, he is. He is currently in second position as we head past the wall of champions now. Alan Matthews still out in front at the moment, but he will now be feeling the pressure with Matt Daly just behind. Colin Kerneef still behind Will Harper for the moment, so this reverse grid race hasn't started exactly how we would have wanted. Whether anything can happen in these reverse grid races, plenty of action always, as Steve Knight enters the pits unfortunately, and Alex Smith sees himself still in 8th position, a few seconds down from the rest of the field for the moment. As Colin Kerneef there had a little bit of, I don't know if that was lag or whatever, but Colin Kerneef has some collision of some description, and that was a very odd one indeed. Under acceleration with Will Harper there. That has dropped him back ever so slightly now, so we will be hoping to get past Will Harper and trying to catch back up to Matt Daly, who's running very nicely indeed, and is being kept behind by Alan Matthews, who's defending nicely. And in fact, Will Harper is going to try and have a go down the inside, I can imagine, of Matt Daly. No, he doesn't choose to just at the moment, but as we head towards T10, this is where there's a very good overtaking opportunity indeed. In fact, Matt Daly has got a very good exit from T9 there and is side by side with Alan Matthews. And as we head into T10, he's got the outside line. Alan Matthews is going to dip to the outside of the exit there and will be side by side with him yet again, heading through T11 now, and will probably assume the lead for the moment. However, Matt Daly looks like he's carrying quite a bit of speed down the straight, and as we head towards T13, he's looking fairly comfortable. Will Harper in the slipstream has been dragged along as well, so he'll be putting pressure on Alan Matthews in just a moment. And unfortunately, it's gone very wrong for Will Harper there, riding the curve, has seen his car get very upset and has taken Alan Matthews out along with him. For a second, it looked like Colin Kerneef was going to be involved as well, but unfortunately for Alan Matthews and Will Harper, they have both been pushed to the very back of the grid there. The stewards will be wanting to look at one there. It looks like Will Harper was getting a little bit braver than braking there and just rode the curve a bit too hard. That upset his car and collected Alan Matthews in the process. So now out in front, we have Matt Daly and Colin Kerneef battling it out again. About 2 seconds separating these two now, though, so it's not gone entirely to plan for Colin Kerneef. However, nothing is sealed yet. We've still got over 20 minutes of this race to go. about 1 second between 4th, 5th and 6th position respectively. These drivers running very nicely indeed. Guy Swarbrick will be battling with Paul Millman again as he did in the previous race. Alex Smith very quick. Alex Smith very quick, as we saw in race 1 before his misfortunes late on in the race. He is now on the gearbox of Guy Swarbrick heading down the casino straight now. In the slipstream, he will be looking to make a move as we head towards head through T12's a very slight kink on the straight and head towards T13. He's dived out a little bit prematurely there, I think. Yeah, he's still just a little bit behind, but if he's very brave on the braking, he will get the move done. And he does, in fact. Conkeneef has to pit. It might have missed some damage there for Conkeneef, unfortunately, but this won't play into his hands at all for the championship. As he received a drive-through penalty. I think he received a drive-through penalty. That won't be what he wanted at all. That sees him demoted down to 6th position, I think. Maybe even 7th. No, he keeps... Oh, no, it's 4th in the end, of course, yeah. I forget that about Montreal. He's got the very weird pit exit, which dumps you out in 2nd corner, so of course you gain a little bit of an advantage. That sees him 4th, but this isn't looking good for his championship contention at all. It plays into Matt Daly's hands nicely, has this weekend. Very close set at the start, and it looks like Matt Daly is running fairly happily now. Conkeneef is stuck behind the now podium sitter of Paul Millman. He'll be wanting to get the move done quickly, but every one of these drivers has got very good skills indeed, and we've seen they can all defend well. And I'm sure he'll be trying to keep Conkeneef behind for quite a long time indeed. It looks like maybe he's got a little bit of advantage on the straight, as does Alex Smith behind. Of course, this is an open setup championship, and these setups can change it as Alex Smith takes the inside line, overtaking Paul Millman in the process. Both drivers running very nicely on the exit of T9 and into T10, being able to overtake Paul Millman there. Conkeneef back in the podium positions. Unfortunately, it's not where he would have wanted. About 12 seconds off the pace from Matt Daly indeed now. Yeah, race 2 has not gone Conkeneef's way at all. Alex Smith is now looking for a little bit of a battle with Conkeneef as we head towards T13. Matt Daly's taking the fastest lap of the race of 38.6, very quick lap from him indeed. As Alex Smith through T13, a very brave move on the braking there, sees him just swoop round Conkeneef really through the wall of champions. Got very close, very hairy indeed there, but Alex Smith is now in the lead. A very quick lap from in the lead there, pardon me. Alex Smith, a very quick lap from him, sees him now in 3rd position. Has in fact been kicked from the race. I'm not sure what that's something I haven't seen before actually. I don't know if that's an automated penalty. As is Will Harper. Oh, I'm presuming that's either related to their incident that I had at T13 before, or it's just coincidental internet connection issues, but I'm presuming that there's an automated system in place that has decided that they should no longer be partaking in this event, unfortunately. What a shame. Both of those drivers have ran very well throughout this weekend. Apologies for the noise there, as Alex Smith dips onto the grass a little bit there. That's not what he wanted, as he's trying to keep Conkeneef behind as we head towards T10 now. Will Harper is able to rejoin the session, luckily, however, he will towards the back of the field. Alex Smith has found himself running very nicely indeed towards the back of the grid at the very start of this race, owing to his misfortunes in the previous race. He now finds himself fighting for a podium position. Rob Whitney running nice himself. Of course, Matt Daly has just been unchallenged, as we see Conkeneef attempting an overtake as Alex Smith dives into the pit there. I imagine to serve a drive-through. Hopefully he's not got any damage. But clearly the drive-throughs being utilised a little bit more than we saw in race 1. Such are the pressures of the reverse grid race. Conkeneef set a very good lap there anyway, and would have been putting an immense amount of pressure on Alex Smith. We now see Conkeneef back up in 3rd position. He spent too much time, or more time than he would have wanted, battling Alex Smith there, and that's going to have affected his charge on Rob Whitney as he attempts to claw back as many points as possible in his fight for the championship. Will Harper is running once again, owing to the disconnection that we saw a moment ago. He's in 7th at the moment.
And in fact, yeah, that's Alex Smith back out. On track, a nice point scoring position of 6th there. Unfortunately, not what he was contending for, both at the start of this race and just in this race and at the start of race 1.
Meanwhile, out in front, Matt Daly. It's been pretty much uncontested. He fought well at the very start of the race to get high up the field, and since then, owing to the misfortunes of some other drivers, has just had a nice run. Alan Matthews being able to rejoin the session there. Colin Knief has to pit again, I imagine, for drive-throughs. Yeah, the driver's falling foul of the system there that is declaring whether or not they deserve a drive-through or not, and unfortunately this is affecting the order pretty harshly, it must be said. He's now back down in 5th. Paul Millman is now once again in the podium scoring positions, and Guy Swarbrick is up into 4th, so he's running very nicely indeed, much like we saw in Monaco, in fact. Colin Knief is once again battling with Alex Smith. This is something that I'm looking forward to watching again. Alex Smith opting for the outside line through T3, giving him the inside on T4 that made him box Colin Knief back in very nicely indeed. Defended well against him, he did there. And as we head towards T6 and through T7, that difficult braking zone, he looks like he wasn't carrying that much speed on the exit there, and has allowed Colin Knief to come up alongside with him as we head towards the harsh braking zone of T8 then. Who's going to be brave on the braking? Looks like Colin Knief's going to be brave on the braking and gets the move done around the outside there, but unfortunately looks like he's got a little bit of swapper on almost, and Alex Smith once again takes P5. As we head towards T10, the harsh braking zone into the hairpin. Colin Knief in 6th position, Will Harper not far behind in 7th now. Although in fact he is a lap down. Alex Smith kept the nose clean through the hairpin there, and Colin Knief is not far off. He's 2nd behind him now at the moment. But yeah, drivers having to watch out for these drive-through penalties then. It's really affected some people's race when we least expected it. So you never know, we could see Matt Daly having to fight to keep his lead of the race at the moment. Rob Whitney running 9th. Says Paul Millman has an error that sees him. Looks like that was at the Wall of Champions, in fact, where he's clattered it and it's just spun him around. Luckily, he didn't collect anyone else. That sees Guy Swarbrick now in 3rd position. Now fighting for a podium position is Guy Swarbrick. Let's see if he can defend well from the very quick Alex Smith and Colin Knief behind. We saw this in Monaco. We saw Guy Swarbrick can put an excellent defensive drive in when he wants to, when he needs to, rather. Fighting for that podium position. I believe he was fighting for the lead at one point in Monaco. It's still a very good podium position for him at the moment if he can keep the very quick Colin Knief and Alex Smith behind. Meanwhile, out in front with about 18 seconds now separating Matt Daly and Rob Whitney. Matt Daly running very nicely indeed. I must say this race has pretty much been secured for him from the get-go, fighting through at the start, and he's been comfortable ever since. But we see Alex Smith making a little bit of an error through T10 there. Lost quite a lot of speed on exit there. Colin Knief carrying far more momentum. He's safe for the moment, but Colin Knief is right on the gearbox of him through the casino straight now. He's going to come side by side as we head towards T13. He's got the outside line now, so he's going to have to be pretty brave to make it stick. If he's lucky, he's going to be able to push Alex Smith. In fact, no, he's going to be very lucky, and looks like he's going to eke out an advantage before the braking zone, and he does indeed. Colin Knief now in 4th position. Now he's just got to hunt down Guy Swarbrick while keeping Alex Smith behind. A very quick Alex Smith who is looking racy, it must be said. Alex Smith tries to dive down the inside through T1 there. That was a little bit hopeful, I think. It wasn't going to work, and luckily he backed out of it just in time. Colin Knief then right on the tail of Guy Swarbrick. Heading through T3, no switch arounds happening, no different racing lines being used, although it looks like Colin Knief almost had a little bit of an explore, or trying to look around the outside of Guy Swarbrick for a second there.
taking the inside much more aggressively than Guy Swarbrick did, carrying a bit more speed. However, he looks very vulnerable to Alex Smith now, it must be said. And they're pretty much going to be 3 wide as we head towards the corner of turn 8 there. Colin Knief benefiting hugely on the exit there. Both him and Alex Smith overtaking Colin Knief, overtaking Guy Swarbrick, and Colin Knief now heading towards T10 in the lead of Alex Smith with that outside manoeuvre at T8/T9. Apologies for the quite a few mistakes this broadcast. I'm a little bit tired, it must be said, and I've just had a very difficult day dealing with a Mito Quadrifolio's gearbox being a little bit iffy. And it's taking its toll. A couple of mistakes are creeping in, but I'm very excited for the finale of this championship nonetheless. It's been hard for all season long, and it's been hard for yet again, as we have seen so far. We've still got another race after this. Heading to T13, then what happened? Alex Smith has to dive into the pits, possibly to serve another drive-through, as does Guy Swarbrick. Oh dear. These drive-through penalties been handing out like sweets at a birthday party, really. If you haven't got one, you're missing out by the looks of things. So Colin Knief is going to be looking further secure in third position for the moment, as long as he can keep the nose clean and not get another drive-through himself. He will be wanting to try and hunt down Rob Whitney in the final 10 minutes of the session. If he can keep the nose clean, not get any more drive-throughs, maybe rely on Rob Whitney to get a drive-through, he can find himself in second position and keep that championship fight going to the very end, the very last lap of the very last race of the last round of this championship. He'll be wanting to do that, so he's going to try and put the pressure on Rob Whitney now and try and catch him. Although he's done a lot of battling though, so I'm not sure how up for it his car will be. As we said, that in this pit lane, actually, you're not losing out an awful amount. It's a pretty quick pit lane, and it dumps you out in a nice, straightforward fashion right onto T2. I don't think you lose too much time in these cars, comparatively, because, well, a huge chunk of this pit lane is either a corner or a braking zone into T1. So yeah, not too much time to be lost through that drive-through, but it's something that the drivers are wanting to avoid regardless. Matt Daly's taking the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:38.5. Very good lap from him there. Those fuel loads start to get lower in the final 10 minutes of this race now. Our leader out in front then, nearly 25 seconds between him and the car behind. It's been a fairly straightforward. I imagine he's read a couple of chapters of a book, especially on these straights here at Montreal in this car. Very nicely played by Matt Daly indeed. Exactly the type of drive that you need to have in order to secure a championship. Be the second championship that he's secured within the week. Very good going from Matt Daly indeed. Of course, it isn't entirely over yet. We've still got another race to go, but things are looking bright for Matt Daly at the moment, it must be said. Colin Knief, meanwhile, in third, is catching nicely to Rob Whitney. About 4 seconds separating these two now. It's about 8 seconds, just a couple of laps to go. So this is going to be a battle I imagine will be brewing as we head into the final stages of this race now. And as we saw in the previous race, although I say that, Will Harper and Alex, they are on separate laps indeed, but it's nice to see some cars occupying the same part of the track. A very quick lap from Matt Daly there, 1:38.1. Oh dear, that's an insane amount of pace. It's quali laps, just awe-inspiring pace from Matt Daly out in front there. It must be said, very good going indeed. But yeah, as we saw in race 1, the drivers now finding their rhythm after the carnage of the reverse grid has started to settle slightly. Drivers finding their rhythm and getting to occupy their own parts of the track and just enjoy a nice, comfortable race as we head towards the end there. Looks like Will Harper is having to serve another drive-through. What a shame, he was battling for the podium not too long ago, and he finds himself towards the bottom of the field now. Paul Millman carrying a little bit of damage on his car there as he heads through T13. We saw him here have that big mistake that saw him facing the opposite direction on the start-finish straight. He is facing the right way this time, but carrying damage as a result of that previous misfortune. About 3 seconds now separating Rob Whitney and Colin Knief. That's going to be very interesting to see this time close as we get towards the final part of this race now. Matt Daly just consistently, without even trying, is just setting quick laps. A 39.7 is nothing to put your nose up at, especially at this stage in the race. The final 5 minutes of the race, he is running nicely indeed. A very well-deserved victory is on its way for Matt Daly, I believe, unless he has to serve drive-through or some other type of misfortune comes. Running very nicely indeed. Will Harper demoted down to 8th now following that drive-through. Personal best for Colin Knief there of 138.8. He's running quite nicely now behind Rob Whitney, and has caught up hugely. It's about a second half separating the two drivers now. He will be feeling the dirty air from Rob Whitney, but will also be feeling the slipstream on these long straight sections of this circuit. So second is still on the cards for Colin Knief after all of his misfortune that he's suffered in this race. Delta now down to about a second as we head through T7 and towards T8 now. Huge braking zones, some of the biggest apart from T13 and T1. Will Harper drops down into 9th position there. A shame to see his race turn around the way that it has. But someone else whose race has turned around is Colin Knief's, indeed. About 7 tenths now separating them as we head towards the hairpin. Final few laps. Second is still on the cards for Colin Knief. Rob Whitney is going to defend like his career depends on it. Heading down the casino straight now. Colin Knief has the slipstream, but it looks like he's going to be a little bit too far back this time round to enjoy those side-by-side moments like we saw earlier on in the race, as we had multiple cars trying to occupy the entire section of track through T13. It's not quite going to happen at this stage in the race, but Colin Knief is looking very racy indeed behind Rob Whitney, putting an immense amount of pressure on him now as we head towards the start-finish straight. They're about side-by-side. Rob Whitney picking up a little bit of dirt on the exit of T14. Colin Knief edging out in front ever so slightly as we head towards T1. He's going to try and box him off under braking and secure that move. That looks like that is done indeed for Colin Knief. Very good work on those laps to gain and catch Rob Whitney, get the move done, secure second place. It's not over yet. There could be a drive-through or something. Could be collisions. Rob Whitney could be able to catch him up in the final couple of laps of this race. We don't know. But one thing is certain. Colin Knief has driven an excellent race despite the adversity that he has faced so far. Very valiant effort indeed. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to keep Matt Daly at bay, who has run impeccably well this entire race, it must be said. But Colin Knief now in second position. Running very well in the later stages of this race, it must be said. There's now about a 3-second gap between him and Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney maybe eking out as much pace as he could from the car in order to keep Colin Knief at bay, but it hasn't quite worked, unfortunately. He should still be very happy with the podium positions that he's running in at the moment, though. And it looks like it's going to be almost a little bit of a repeat of the previous race. Colin Knief keeping the pace to the very end of the race. Unfortunately, it's about a 30-second gap now owing to those drive-throughs that we saw before. So it won't be enough to catch him within the final couple of laps of this race, unless something goes extremely wrong. Looks like Colin Knief is very racy at the final part of this race with that low fuel load. But it won't be enough to keep Matt Daly at bay in the championship fight. We see Will Harper having to pit again, maybe something mechanical, maybe an error in his setup, or another drive-through penalty for Will Harper there, perhaps, unfortunately. What a turnaround that race has been for him.
just watching Matt Daly just put in practice lap now at this point. I think he's been cool, calm, and collected. A phrase I've started to use quite a lot. Just how good these racing drivers are, that they just look like they know what they're doing. Especially when you're 30 seconds out of your 30 seconds ahead of your championship rival, who, despite his valiant efforts, is not able to challenge Matt Daly for the victory in the second round of this 3-part weekend.
They're now about 6 seconds ahead of Rob Whitney, actually, as the timer comes to the end. A very slow lap for Matt Daly there, actually. Yeah, slower than what we'd usually see from him. Maybe the tyres are finally starting to wear off just a little bit. But this is now the final lap for Matt Daly. Matt Daly with 207 points at the moment, owing to the previous race victory. Colin Knief at 194. That will see Matt Daly extend his points to 232 points, with Colin Knief sitting at 212. So if race 3 goes Colin Knief's way, and Matt Daly probably doesn't, well, Matt Daly will score with 9 cars on the grid. But Colin Knief is going to have to put in some magic and hope for some misfortune for Matt Daly if he has any hope at securing the championship. But anything can happen in that full reverse grid race as Matt Daly heads around the final hairpin as we head onto the casino straight now. Colin Knief has actually found a huge chunk of time there. Fortunately, it's come a couple of laps too late, I think, but about 10 seconds now has been gained on Matt Daly. But it's going to be too little too late, unfortunately, as we watch Matt Daly head down the casino straight and into T13. Breezing past the wall of champions. Much safer than we've seen some other drivers. I think we're about to get another celebratory weave. A very, very decisive victory for Matt Daly again. Sees him take another 25 points. Another all-important 25 points for the championship. It's going Matt Daly's way, it must be said. A very, very impressive victory indeed. He'll be looking forward to round 3, I will imagine, of this weekend. Colin Knief then. Huge adversity in this race. Excellent recovery drive. Sees him take home 2nd position. Not too far behind him. A very good drive indeed again from Rob Whitney. He takes home 3rd position. And as Alex Smith clatters the wall of champions a little bit, it's not how you want to end the race, really. I mean, points for style, maybe? But to be honest, he's only got about 20 seconds before Guy Swarbrick's going to make an appearance, so he's going to try and go for the reverse strategy. Will it be yeah, it'll be enough. This could be quite an interesting photo finish if Guy Swarbrick was just a little bit closer. I mean, this is a screenshot worth taking. I have now taken said screenshot because that is quite an interesting way to end the race for Alex Smith there, as Guy Swarbrick also crosses the line in 5th position. Paul Milton carrying a little bit of damage on, looks like, on all sections of the car there. I'm not sure he's dragged this home. Will be the last driver to complete the race on the lead lap, taking home 6th position. Steve Knight taking home 7th, Alan Matthews taking home 8th, and I believe Will Harper will be classified as 9th. So, as we saw in race 1, a very action-packed race with Matt Daly celebrating with some celebratory donuts and his probable ceiling of the championship there for Matt Daly. We have yet to see, though. Let's not celebrate too early. I mean, the celebrations are valid. Very, very good job from him indeed. But we're all looking forward to the full reverse grid, the final 25-minute race, round 3 of this weekend. It's what we've all been waiting for. It's going to be the conclusion of this championship. We'll join you in just a moment for that now.
So you join us for the final reverse grid of the finale of the Formula Alpha Championship here in Montreal. We've got just over 30 seconds to go until lights out. We're at a full reverse grid, so we have Will Harper leading up on pole, Alan Matthews in second, Steve Knight in third as Will Harper disconnects. Actually, oh dear, that's hopefully he can rejoin just before the race start this weekend. Really won't have played out the way he would have wanted if he can't rejoin before the race starts. So dear, we have Paul Milner in fourth, Guy Strawbrick fifth, Alex Smith 6th as the camera is trying to fight me. Rob Whitney 7th, Colin Knief 8th, and Matt Daly 9th. Will Harper is able to join just in the nick of time. As the revs rise, they get ready to prepare their launches, and the gantry is ready. I'm really having a small battle with the camera, it appears, as Will Harper has unfortunately been relegated to pits. Oh dear! That was a late change all of a sudden, and now the camera has decided that I don't get to see the launch of the race, unfortunately. Oh, this has not gone to plan at all. Oh dear. As you can see, my car in the distance there, but unfortunately, without the timing system activating, I can't. Well, there we go. As Alan Matthews has now got first position, Steve Knight close behind in second, Paul Milman in third, Alex Smith fourth, Matt Daly fifth, Rob Whitney sixth, and Colin Knief seventh, Guy Swarbrick eighth. Guy Swarbrick losing out a little bit on the start there, but Matt Daly once again has got a little bit of an air gap between him and Colin Knief. That could play into his hands quite nicely. Colin Knief is looking to close that though, as it looks at a move around the outside of Rob Whitney. Backs out of it just at the last moment, just in the nick of time. But he's looking quite racy against Matt Daly this time around though. Is this a little bit of retribution for Colin Knief as we head through T6? Well, I mean, it wasn't T6 at all, and that was T8. Nevertheless, Matt Daly in 5th position, Colin Knief in 7th, as we have quite a few cars heading into the braking zone at T10 there, and Paul Milman is unfortunately facing the wrong direction. Alex Smith got a little bit caught by that, but Paul Milman loses out most of all there. What a shame, that's not how he would have wanted to have started his race. Colin Knief now sees himself in 3rd owing to that chaos. Matt Daly in 4th fighting Alex Smith. If he is spending too long fighting Alex Smith, this could play into Colin Knief's hands nicely. We've seen the pace that Colin Knief has when he's hunting down someone. I'm sure he'll be putting pressure on Steve Knight very quickly indeed, especially if Knight continues to make that type of error at the Wall of Champions. He'll be soon finding himself with some front-end damage on his car. Alan Matthews then completes the lap in the lead for the moment. Matt Daly and Alex Smith are side by side here into the T1. Matt Daly taking the inside line and swooping past as we head into T2 then. Rob Whitney is actually running very nicely indeed in 6th at the moment, very close to these two cars. This is a camera we haven't seen much of this weekend, in fact, and we can see that Colin Knief is just exploring those lines around Steve Knight just a little bit there. Guy Strawbrick is now overtaking Paul Milman. Paul Milman probably suffering from a little bit of excess tyre temperature there. In fact, Alex Smith has now been overtaken by Rob Whitney. This weekend hasn't gone Alex Smith's way, it must be said, much like it hasn't gone Will Harper's way. Looked very hopeful at the very start, but unfortunately things just haven't played out the way that they would have wanted. But yeah, I imagine Paul Milman is now suffering with some tyre temp issues after those misfortunes that we saw. Steve Knight getting a little bit of rotation on the curb of T10 there. Colin Knief will have got a much better exit and will now be putting pressure on him on the Casino Straight now. Meanwhile, out in front, avoiding all this battling, Alan Matthews has got a nice little air gap heading down the Casino Straight now. He'll be hoping for Steve Knight to put on a good defence heading into T13 now then, as Colin Knief is very brave on the brakes there, and it hasn't worked out for him at all. Oh dear, what a shame for Colin Knief. That has ruined his hopes at the championship fight. He was just too brave into the braking zone there, and maybe Steve Knight didn't see him, but it just looked like a bit of bravery under braking there, saw the two come together, maybe a bit of lag was involved there, and unfortunately for him, that sees him now relegated down into 6th, while Matt Daly is up into 3rd position. That's exactly the type of incident he needs to avoid at the start of his last-ditch effort to take the win in this championship, and unfortunately, it's what he wasn't able to avoid. He sees himself in 6th position now. So Steve Knight for the moment is still in 2nd, but Matt Daly is very close behind. And the look there, yeah, just too late on the brakes, carrying way too much speed, and that rotates the car ever so slightly and sees him down in 5th now. I imagine Colin Knief will be
close behind him, and we'll be hoping that the overtake that will be attempted in just a couple of laps won't go quite as wrong as the previous one did. So Matt Daly now up in second. He's got about a 5-second gap to Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews running very nicely out in front indeed. About 5-second gap between him and Matt Daly now. Matt Daly is going to try and close that. But as it's standing at the moment, Matt Daly is going to take a nice championship victory. His second of the previous 7 days, in fact. As Will Harper and Paul Millman swap positions. Paul Millman's tyres, I imagine, feeling pretty dead as well after those few errors. So this very last race of this championship not going the way that some drivers would have wanted. Montreal, a very good, a very historic track, providing some excellent challenges for these drivers. As Colin Knief and Steve Knight swap positions there. Colin Knief sees himself in 5th now. Colin Knief being able to get past this time without too much calamity. Matt Daly has found about a second on Alan Matthews out in front for the moment. That charge is going nicely indeed. He won't want to overdo it. He still has the very quick Alex Smith behind him, who I am sure will put some pressure on if mistakes start to creep in. Looks like the car was not too happy to turn in there. Looked like he was having to put quite a bit of steering lock in, heading through into T6 there. Nonetheless, he's still running nicely indeed now, about 3 seconds separating him and Alan Matthews. But it must be said, he is bringing Alex Smith along with him. Maybe a tiny bit of tow. It's about, to be fair, it's about 2 seconds. I'm not sure how powerful the tow is at this point in these cars. But Alex Smith is certainly in for the fight along with Matt Daly. Just over 2.5 seconds now down the casino straight, separating these two drivers. In a couple of laps, we're going to be on for a very interesting battle for the entire podium, I think. These two are probably going to get tangled up. They're very quick indeed, the pair of them. And I imagine they're going to get tangled up, battling. Not as in tangled as in find themselves embedded into the world champions or anything, but I imagine they're going to find themselves losing a little bit of time as they battle. Alan Matthews will try and defend that lead, but he's going to have to do an excellent job of defending, especially when Matt Daly's putting in lap times like that. I won 38.5. That's some of the very best that we've seen all weekend. We've seen him put those type of laps in every single race so far. Matt Daly is just on absolute top form, as he has been for so much of this season. Now less than 2 seconds separating these two drivers. And as we head through T8 now, there's just over a second. Matt Daly is surely going to be putting the pressure on towards the end of this lap, especially with that huge amount of slipstream he can take. Now less than a second, actually. So as we head into the hairpin, the pressure is definitely going to be on. He'll be using the casino straight well. Yeah, a few drivers we've seen taking that outside line through the hairpin. It must be the optimum line to take in these cars if you're trying to look after your tyres. We've still got just over 50 minutes of this race to go. Just start to dip away ever so slightly in that slipstream. About 6,000 RPMs is pretty much about as much as you want to rev one of these multi-airs out. That's always the limit on these. It's how many revs you can carry. But Matt Daly was so much quicker through T13 and T14, that complex then, that he is now right up half a second behind Alan Matthews. A very quick lap from Matt Daly indeed there. 138.3. He's just getting quicker and quicker as the laps go on. And a little bit of an error from Alan Matthews there. A bit of rotation on the rear end sees him now down into second. In fact, will he be under pressure from Alex Smith now? No, he won't. In fact, Alex Smith's a bit too far behind, but that's the type of error that Matt Daly was looking for. Just made it easy for him. Matt Daly, once again, leads. This is the type of driver that demonstrates why that they deserve the championship win. Just an serious amount of pace has been demonstrated all weekend. He barely put a foot wrong. In fact, I don't think he has put a foot wrong, really.
and has always found himself in a leadership position at some point or another in the races. In fact, this is poor form for him, relatively. You know, it's taken him a whole 10 minutes to get up to the lead. Yeah, just impeccable performance from Matt Daly, it must be said. Meanwhile, Alex Smith is under pressure from Rob Whitney, less than half a second separating these two as we head towards turn 10 now. Rob Whitney has an explore down the inside of, yeah, there's not actually a corner there. Usually there's a corner on those tiny little Kings, knowing Montreal. But as we head through turn 11, they are pretty much neck and neck. Rob Whitney diving, doing a quick switch back as we head through turn 12. They are side by side, and it's going to be who is bravest under braking through T13. Rob Whitney actually ekes out in front. Must have been a serious amount of pace in that slipstream there. But Alex Smith is slowly gaining again, and under T13, if he's brave enough under braking, he will get the moves done. Unfortunately, it looked like he might have been too brave under braking there, but just about got it to stick. Very, very good move from Alex Smith there to take back third position. And as we start the next lap, he will be in third position, but with Rob Whitney very close behind indeed. Colin Knief in fifth, meanwhile, has been setting some very good laps and is now behind these two. So if these two keep battling, we could see Colin Knief fighting for the bottom spot of the podium yet again. As we head towards turn 6 now, we see Colin Knief dipping up a wheel over the curb there. The looks like Rob Whitney was a little bit wider than the others there. Colin Knief also exploring as much as he can of that left-hand side of the track as we head towards turn 8 now. Alex Smith under an immense amount of pressure. Textbook move through that. Oh dear, what has happened there? What has happened to Alan Matthews there? I'm not sure if that was a bit of lag that caused contact or whatever, but the car just seemed to stop dead in its tracks. Rob Whitney has now been overtaken by Colin Knief as well, so maybe there's a little bit of contact between the two, caused him to lose speed and caused Alan Matthews to just stop entirely. But Colin Knief is now in. Oh, what? Oh, yeah. Oh dear. So that was Alan Matthews who was running second. He's now got a pretty substantial amount of damage on the front end of his car. That now sees Alex Smith in second and Colin Knief in third. Matt Daly now looks fairly uncontested in the lead yet again, the third time in a row this weekend. Matt Daly's got a lap car behind him and is looking fairly happy out in the front, but what on earth happened to Alan Matthews on that last lap there? Nevertheless, we've still got a 3-car battle, but now it's for second position instead of third. Alex Smith taking the inside on turn 1, but that gives him the outside through turn 2, and that allows Colin Knief to just swoop past and take second position. Rob Whitney will now be putting pressure on Alex Smith, as it looks like Alan Matthews has to pit owing to that damage. What a shame to see his challenge this race come to a very quick end. Colin Knief is now running in second position, but he's still under pressure immensely from Alex Smith and Rob Whitney. Actually, we've seen that Colin Knief towards the end of the race has some fairly good pace. We're just around about the halfway mark now, with 9 seconds to go. We could yet be on for a challenge between Colin Knief and Matt Daly. I'm not trying to cause any unnecessary hype or tension or anything, but we've seen that Colin Knief, a bit of clear air and a car that he needs to chase down, he has delivered so far this weekend. With 12 minutes to go, we could be on for a challenge from Colin Knief yet. Let's hope that no drive-throughs get involved or anything like that, but yeah, we could be on for a good little end to this race indeed. As Rob Whitney is putting the pressure on Alex Smith down the casino straight. It's a move that we've seen countless times now this weekend. Rob Whitney has a look down the inside, decides not to, as Alex Smith swoops back from the outside straight onto the inside of turn 13. Matt Daly saying a 138 flat, very quick lap from Matt Daly there. It's just serious pace, just awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping, whatever hyperbole you want to attach to it. Very good indeed. Looks like Rob Whitney's dropped back a little bit from Alex Smith now, as has Alex Smith from Colin Knief. Colin Knief hasn't quite picked up that momentum that I expected him to, but maybe it's just a little bit too premature. Maybe he's conserving that tyre life a little bit towards the end. And we'll see the pace start to pick up in just a moment as the fuel load starts to get lighter and lighter.
See that Alex Smith taking some liberties with that curb then. Probably a bit more curb than you want to take in one of these single-seater Tartus chassis. They're not quite rally cars, unfortunately. Too much of that, and we'll see him drop down the grid, I think, owing to some damage, but he's alright for now. Down the casino straight then. Rob Whitney. Dropped back a little bit more compared to where he was a lap ago. As Conkeneath is coming across some lap traffic now. Conkeneath a very quick lap there, 138.9. Is this the charge towards the front that I was talking about just a couple of laps ago? Is it finally starting to happen now? It's got about 10 minutes left. We can average about a second a lap. Maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe Matt Daly can finally make an error this weekend and we could see a little battle between these two brewing yet. Once again, just textbook from Matt Daly then. And as I described in previous two races, it looks like the drivers are slowly starting to find their groove a little bit. We've got a little bit of battle for second and third currently ongoing as Conkeneath is sat in the slipstream of a back marker. As Paul Milman will be looking to get out of the way in just a moment. He's currently sat on the inside line for Conkeneath there. It won't be helping him too much, but it also hasn't affected him too badly, I would say. It looks like he's going to have to fight his way past as we head towards T10. He does concede the position to him there, and will now be between him and P3 and P4 behind. Of course, Paul Milman benefiting from the slipstream now given to him by Conkeneath. See a train of cars forming as they all hunt for each other's slipstream. We've seen top speeds of about 146 at some points during this weekend. Quite a lot for these Tartus FA01 cars. Heading for the World Champions, then Conkeneath picks up a little bit of dirt. And that train that I just mentioned separates out a little bit as drivers prepare themselves into turn one, the next hard braking zone on this circuit. Alex Smith and Rob Whitney posting very similar lap times there. Good to see that they are on each other's pace, as they have been so much throughout this weekend. This race going a little bit better for Alex Smith than the previous two. Not the race weekend that he would have wanted at all, but nevertheless, he's showing some good racing throughout this weekend. Conkeneath has actually lost a little bit of time to Matt Daly, so unfortunately that charge I was talking about a few minutes ago, it doesn't look like that's going to be happening, unfortunately. And I think Matt Daly will be very happy with his championship victory. It's like Geiss Robic has found a wall at some point there. I imagine he's ridden a curb or collided with the wall of champions and has unfortunately embedded himself in a wall. He's still in 7th position for the moment, so good couple of points he should be able to pick up as we head into the final stages of this race now. A little bit of front end damage as well though, so he may have to pit. Riding curbs a little bit through T13 and T14. Conkeneath running very nice now in some clean air again. All these drivers out in front setting some very quick laps indeed. He's not completely in the clear yet. He's got some very quick drivers behind. They are a little bit slower on lap time, but we can see that they're staying with him, and they've done quite a good job of doing that for so long in these reverse grid situations. Harper has managed to cover himself up a little bit into 6th position, so very good going from him. We've seen some glimpses of very good pace indeed, but unfortunately he's just come across a bit too much misfortune this race weekend to really capitalise on it. And through T10, it looks like he almost a bit late on the brakes there was Colin Knief. Or maybe opting for that outside line again, looking after the tyres. Although as we head into the final 5 minutes, I imagine he's going to want to go all guns blazing, try and get himself a bit of clean air away from the cars behind, who are about 4 seconds at the moment, actually. So he's relatively clear, but if something goes wrong, as we've seen, for example, for Guy Swarbrick, as we've seen for Paul Millman, we've seen for Will Harper, he could soon find himself losing this podium, as he gets quite close to the world champions himself there then. It looks like a bit of rotation on the rear end for Alex Smith, exiting the T14 there. I imagine that's not entirely pleasant. That was a bit of, oh dear, a bit of oversteer for Colin Knief as came in there. That was the exact type of mistake I was talking about him wanting to avoid. We'll see Alex Smith come blaring past as he exits turn 2. And Colin Knief now has a fight in his hands in order to try and take back second position. Maybe the tyres are starting to finally lose a little bit of life in these final stages of these races, and the drivers maybe a little bit of fatigue coming in after already doing 2 25-minute races. And of course the fuel is getting lower as well, a little bit less weight in the cars, and the cars will start to become harder to drive. So we see Alex Smith going off at turn 6 there. That sees him now demoted back into 3rd position. He hasn't lost a position to Rob Whitney, but in fact, no, he has. Rob Whitney is edging him out on the straight there as we head into turn 8. He's got the outside line though. Pardon me, Alex Smith has got the inside line though, and unfortunately, Rob Whitney is able to take the position back. So he hasn't lost out too much. That could have gone very wrong indeed for him, but Colin Knief will be quite happy with that because he's now back in 2nd position. We exit turn 11. Rob Whitney's looking for an opportunity to overtake down the Casino Straight. He will, if he can't get the moves done at the moment, they're about side by side. He will try and dip in the slipstream, but it looks like for now, car's got a little bit more pace, whether that be through the exit of the corner or just down to set up in the straight line. However, who's going to be braver under braking into T13? It looks like it's going to be Alex Smith, riding the curve a little bit. He gets the move done again, a little bit of back end rotation, exiting T14 again for Alex Smith. He's going to have to be very careful on the sector 1 of this lap to try and avoid the mistake that he had the previous time around, but he keeps Rob Whitney at bay just for the moment. Heads into the final couple of minutes of this race, then we have Matt Daly, who, as we have seen in the first couple of races of the weekend, has just led a decisive victory so far. Just impeccable driving, as I've mentioned before. Colin Knief, after some misfortunes in pretty much every race, is currently finding himself in 2nd position. Some good recovery drives seen in every single race so far. Alex Smith in 3rd, currently defending that from Rob Whitney in 4th. Steve Knight in 5th, running quite well, nicely in the points for him there. Will Harper in 6th, again recovering from some misfortunes. Looks like a bit of rotation happening on his car there. I can't imagine that's a particularly nice drive at the moment. Guy Swarbrick is running in 7th, and then Matthews in 8th, unfortunately. We've seen some good pace from him, but unfortunately it hasn't quite materialised in race 3 for him. And Paul Millman running in 9th at the moment. Matt Daly is out there setting 38.7s, and they're nowhere near his quickest laps. That's just the pace that he is carrying at the moment. So we're on the final couple laps then of the final race, of the final round of this series. This has been it's been one of the first e-racing series that I have had the pleasure of commentating on. There have been mistakes, but I hope you have enjoyed listening and watching regardless. It's been a big learning curve, and I hope we will come back bigger and better in a few weeks with the next round of championships. Of course, if you haven't heard already, and how have you missed, National Alpha Day is happening this Sunday. The racing leagues will be there with the racing leagues trucks, the Chris Knott Insurance Challenge, where you can test your mettle against our drivers in the TCR cars at Silverstone and try and come away with some sim racing gear. I will be there commentating, so we hope to see you there at National Alpha Day. Alex Smith then is just about keeping Rob Whitney behind for the moment as the timer comes to a close. We've got about 30 seconds until we see the closing lap of the race.
imagine the fuel burn on this circuit is extremely high. I imagine the tanks are pretty full at start and of course are pretty empty towards the end. So the delta between how the cars feel at the start and the end is pretty substantial. Maybe it's why we've seen a couple of mistakes creep in. Maybe it's why we've just seen the lap time start to fall off and fall off and fall off for people like Matt Daly. It's Matt Daly crawls across the line there to try and make sure that this is the final lap. A sneaky move from Matt Daly there. Very, very, very well thought out from Matt Daly there. He just wants the race to be over with, and I don't blame him. He has led it for so long. He is ever so close to that championship victory. It's Matt Daly. This is genius. Just what an impressive play there to just creep behind the start-finish line to ensure that this is the final lap of the race then. Has of course allowed Colin Knief to catch up by about 6 seconds. Colin Knief of course isn't seeing this feed at the moment, but if so without it, I'm sure he's feeling pretty hopeful, hoping for a bit of an accident maybe or something on Matt Daly's part. Unfortunately that is not the case. It's just some wily tactics from Matt Daly to bring that victory ever closer to him. Of course, I don't know his fuel load actually. We were just talking about fuel loads. Maybe it's quite low. Oh dear, I've accidentally drawn myself to the camera car. Yeah, the unsung hero of this series, the camera car, who has been parked in the pit on idle every single race. I can imagine that engine is particularly healthy after this, but Matt Daly then is heading onto the casino straight for the final race of this championship. It's been very well fought by all the drivers. Some seriously impressive driving has been displayed. Huge amounts of action. I've enjoyed thoroughly enjoyed just watching it happen. I hope you have as well. As Matt Daly comes through T13 past the wall of champions. He is a champion himself now, yet again, as he weaves across the line. He takes the win of this race, and he takes the win of this championship. Matt Daly wins. Very impressive drive, not only in this race, but all year. Well done to him. I'm sure we're about to see some impressive celebratory donuts from him in just a moment. Commiserations to Colin Knief as he crosses the line in second. This wasn't the race weekend that he wanted to fight Matt Daly for that championship. Some impressive driving, yet again, not only in this race, but for the entire season from him. Commiserations, but congratulations as well to Colin Knief. Alex Smith taking home third, Rob Whitney taking home fourth. Some very good driving we've seen between these two, some very good battles we've seen between these two. Steve Knight, as he comes down the casino straight, will be taking home fifth. But I'm sure Matt Daly is just taking in the glory on this parade lap. 2 championships in the space of a week. Well done to him. Are we about to see some camaraderie between rivals? I hope so. Yeah, they celebrate the in-lap together. Steve Knight takes home fifth, as Will Harper, carrying a bit of a damage on the front of his car there, comes past all the champions. And takes home sixth. Yeah, just excellent driving from Matt Daly. Excellent driving from everyone, really, but Matt Daly has just done an exceptional effort. I think we're about to see some celebratory donuts. Let's just take that in. Guy Swarbrick taking home 7th. His own well-deserved celebratory donuts there. Taking home 7th. And Alan Matthews. Donuts all around, celebrating the end of this very hard-fought championship. It was a championship that went on until the bitter end. Very hard-fought. Only 6 points between the drivers as we entered this weekend. But it was Matt Daly who came out victorious. I apologise for the background noise there, as we enjoy some more celebratory donuts from Matt Daly. I hope you have enjoyed watching this championship as much as I've enjoyed commentating on it. We will be back very shortly indeed with some more exciting racing from the AROC Racing Leagues. But for now, it is goodbye. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon.